Okay, boys, welcome back to another episode of Whiteboard Tarkov. You know what time it is. It's time to use door kickers as an explanatory tool for basic ground fireteam tactics. So, if you did not watch the entire podcast and me and Tucker Beers, I know it's fine. I don't blame you. It was long and it's a rambly conversation like most podcasts. So, I don't blame anyone for not wanting to watch it if they don't enjoy it. I know some people did, and I thank you very much if you did. I have several projects in the work, but I haven't released anything in between, and I thought that it would be very good if I could explain some concepts that I learned or was taught that might not be useful right now, but could possibly serve some use in the future. And it also might be a little educational tool on how you might want to act in real life, depending if you play paintball or airsoft, or you're going into train to be a paramilitary organization or militia or whatever. Whatever. The important thing is that you need 4 people, 4 to 5 people, and in this episode we're going to be learning how to cross a road and how to move in formation. So let's just pull it up here, my demonstration map, and I think we already have 5 people by default. Yep, there we go. They'll just get in position. So first of all, how to clear a road. Now obviously I'm not going to worry about like sight lines because this guy's slightly exposed. I'm just going and explaining how it was explained to me how you should cross a road tactically, I guess you could say. So the first step that what Tucker explained is you want to get cross coverage onto both areas of the street. This is by moving one person to look down the street this way and another person to look down the street that way. The map cuts off there, but you understand the concept, right? You look both directions. The second part to crossing a road is that you'll send 2 people across to do the exact same thing on the other side, while the third person is going to cross as well. And this allows you to get as much cross coverage and usually suppressive fire downrange immediately. Because you have, once everyone's in position, of course, you basically have 2 guns pointing each direction. And if the first people are putting down covering fire, you have suppressive fire going in both directions down the road. Of course, if you're at the end of a road or an intersection, it gets a little trickier, but I can think of how to do that or talk to Tuck and ask how he would do it. But there's also an important part about flowing out of this little formation. So if you remember correctly, you send 2 people to post up both ways, look down both sides of the road. You cross the 3, or would be 2, so they have the same cross coverage. And then the most important thing is when you're crossing the last 2 people, you're probably gonna start this guy make entry. These 2 are gonna wait. And this is kind of a bad word to demonstrate perfect execution on it because it's a really interesting layout. A probable layout, but interesting nonetheless. The first person who got in this guy is going to be the last person off. They're going to go inside. And these 2 are going to fold off last. Hopefully they're close enough together so there's no like delay where one person isn't being covered. But this is how effectively you can move a 4-man fire team as carefully as possible down a road. Now, why would we want to move them down the road? Why can't we go straight down? Well, roads are natural places for people to go. And I know that sounds pretty stupid, but let me elaborate, as Tuck elaborated to me in the podcast. Roads attract attention, and every window is going to be looking down the road. Every person is going to be watching the road. The road is the main designed way of transportation. So it's where the most interest is going to be in, from enemy combatants, you could say. So this creates these kind of natural, long funnels of no cover and little concealment. Now this can change, of course, if you have a kind of fucked up situation where your city's under siege. There could be defensive dugouts, maybe somewhere around here. Maybe a crashed truck, a VBIED that's not being used. There's a lot of things that could mess this up. And in Tarkov, we really don't know what streets is going to look like, so I'm going to assume some roads are going to have enough cover and concealment for you to move a team across safely, that is. And some roads aren't. And that's when you can use tactics like this to expose a little of you and stay at the edges of it, the periphery, while getting everyone across in a tactical manner, of course. On to the next demonstration. Another concept, and we're not using this person for the demonstration, by the way, is moving in formation across open areas. And while I will warn you, Tuck and I both came to the conclusion together that this had limited application in Tarkov, I still think that it might be useful to know if you're going to use Tarkov as possibly a mirror for fire team training in real life. Because you can at least get formation. So wedge formation, or an echelon formation, is exactly like this. 10 meters apart between each person in a formation like this, trying to get the most guns pointed forward while spacing people out the most so they don't get cut down all in one. And as you can see here, we have a triangle, a V shape, and one guy off to the right, which would typically be your LMG, M249, PKM guy, whatever. So I believe this is a echelon, and if we go over here, if we just move the formation a little bit, this would be a wedge. However, from what I'm told, most commonly, instead of using the name echelon, it's wedge heavy right or left, depending on where you're going to put this M249 gunner. And I'm assuming that's determined by terrain. So, there are also a couple other formations you should probably know about. Their usefulness varies. You have a diamond. This is most commonly used when going down a hallway, and from what Tuck told me and other people have told me as well, is that this is kind of just what happens naturally anyways. It's supposed to maximize the most guns forward again, which is a very common theme. You want the most firepower in your front to engage things down a hallway or a building, while also keeping some on rear security. Yeah, and minimizing the chances for friendly fire. You probably want them actually shoulder to shoulder in this case. At least your gun would be touching your friend's shoulder, so that there's no way you could actually shoot him in the back. You probably want to be shoulder to shoulder on this one. There's a couple other formations that are more commonly used, and these ones could actually be applicable in Tarkov. There's your file, or no, this would be a line. So 10 meters apart between each person, and you're basically spreading out as thin as possible. And now this one actually has real application in Tarkov, because if you all keep in a line, it's going to be very hard for an enemy to take off two of you at once. And also equally as hard for them to know how many are coming, because people typically will go on a file, which is like a line, but, going forward. I guess it'd be like a foot patrol against a narrow path here. And say that they're heading this direction. And just imagine there's 10 meter spacing between the three. This is how most people travel in Tarkov, and it allows you to get a very good head count. If you see one, say there's an enemy here, and for some reason no one watches it, you can see lead man pass, and then he'll wait a second because he hears more footsteps. Third, fourth, and maybe, third and fourth go in, and he's like, oh, there's four. Then he pops out and shoots you all in the back. When you're traveling in a big ass, instead of a file, you're traveling a line rather, he'll just see one or two guys, and if you're keeping that 10 meter separation, you should be like 50 meters, or if he's even closer than that, like 40 meters away from the last guy. It creates a very effective way at maximizing safety, in my opinion. And I've had people do this in raid, and it more or less happens less like, hey, everybody get into the line. It's more like maintain your spacing and let people catch up. And that's how typically you'll take what I'd consider probably a more dangerous tactic in Tarkov, which is going in file into areas, into a safer tactic, which is going in a line. And that's all I have for today. It's a very short episode I threw together. I have more soccer content on the way. I have more Tarkov content on the way. And I don't really have anything that works for Squad, so if you've subscribed to that, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to diversify my content quite a bit. So I hope you all enjoyed, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.